Iran's nuclear program is said to be far more advanced today as a result of the Trump administration's withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal in 2018. Experts say Iran is already quite close to the nuclear threshold. This means the amount of time Tehran would need to make enough enriched uranium for a bomb is probably very short. In a last-ditch effort, talks to resurrect the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, the eighth so far, will restart this week after a brief pause. For more on the deal, our guest on Diplomatic Channel this week is Professor Sherif Folari, who is the immediate past head of the Department Political Science and International Relations at Covenant University. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
The Iran nuclear deal has had several setbacks over the past few months. Many have held these round of talks as a make or break. How optimistic are you that this deal can be saved, or are we at the end of the road?
Well, I think that it's a defining moment for peace in the Middle East, and indeed for what will eventually become of the capability of Iran in terms of acquiring nuclear weapons, and indeed the capacity of the superpowers to be able to contain not only Iran, but also ensure that there is peace in the Middle East. So indeed, it's a defining moment. But I would say that we don't have dark clouds hanging in the air around these nuclear talks. I would say that there seems to be a ray of hope in terms of the fact that there is disposition on the part of some of these Western powers, particularly as dictated by the European Union leadership. They want to see an end to this Iranian nightmare in terms of stockpiling of enriched stockpiling of uranium, and indeed the tendency for Iran to want to develop nuclear capabilities in terms of having nuclear warheads. I would say that the European Union leadership is favorably disposed to having a truce and indeed a pathway that will end up in a total solution to the imbroglio that is ensuing in the last 2 years, not just few weeks or few months, 2 years, ever since the United States pulled out of this nuclear deal. And of course, we also have a couple of countries that are superpowers, that are also nuclear powers, such as Russia and China, that are part of the 7 or 6 nation, group that will be talking to Iran or having a round table to see to it that Iran is able to kind of denuclearize and indeed put down all of this, nuclear arms development that she's been up to for some years now. So having that, these two factors in play, that is European Union favorably disposed to it, and of course, Russia and China also wanting an end to it, I would say that there seems to be some kind of light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, officials have warned that the Iran nuclear deal would become pointless within weeks if Iran continues to step up its nuclear activities, as it has been doing since 2019. Do you think Iran is playing for time here?
Well, I would say that, it's international politics, and international politics, national interest, is paramount in any, in whatever that nations are doing. Now, for Iran, it has a bargaining chip. The bargaining chip is its nuclear capacity. The bargaining chip is, of course, its intentions, which are well advertised globally, to develop nuclear weapons. No doubt about it, even though it keeps saying it, in a subtle way, that it has no intentions, no such intentions of developing nuclear weapons. But it's very clear. When you study the body language of the political leaders in Iran, you will know that indeed this is what they are trying to do. It's like a chess game. And so they put whatever it is, they put these things wherever they think they can put, and then they try to put some strings and see to it, to try to see to it that what powers are able to strike a balance with them. We mustn't forget the fact that Iran is considered to be one of those countries, particularly from the point of view of United States foreign policy, one of those countries that belong in the axis of evil. And when a country that belongs in the axis of evil has nuclear capacity, then of course the entire international community is endangered. So the Western, bloc sees it. And so what Iran is doing is to kind of throw a little bit of, carrot before the international community, particularly before the world powers, that look, if you are able to remove all of these sanctions, if you're able to persuade those countries, particularly the United States, that have imposed maximum sanctions on her, then of course she's going to denuclearize. So what are we saying? Iran says that it doesn't want to, it's not actually having a nuclear program that tends towards having nuclear warheads. But then on another breath, it's saying that, look, we will totally denuclearize when you are able to lift sanctions. What are we saying? You will see that they are speaking with two sides of their mouth. So, well, yes, they are playing for time, no doubt. But at the same time, they actually have the Western powers and indeed the international community right, in their on their palms. And as such, they could try to spin whatever they want to spin to see that these things work in their favor. Ultimately, I believe very strongly that going by the fact that the United States administration today, the nature of the government United States today is such that is positively disposed to being present, playing an oversight role, and of course also ensuring that there is some control on Iran's nuclear program. Having that kind of disposition will mean that there is a likelihood that there will be some lifting of sanctions, and then there's also the likelihood that Iran may be a little bit honest about her or its, intentions to see to it that there are no nuclear wars development.
With Tehran feared to be weeks away from a point of no return on nuclear weapons, are we looking down the barrel of an arms race in the Middle East? And what are the implications of that?
I really don't see any arms race in the Middle East. Well, I would say that right now we have, there's a balance of terror. If Iran goes ahead and develop nuclear weapons, there is an Israel that will always, kind of even things. But we must understand the fact that while Israel is not, strictly speaking, geopolitically regarded as a Middle Eastern country, it's seen more like as an European country, but it's well situated in the Middle East. We look at it purely from a geographical perspective and not the political angle of it. So we would say that there will be, some kind of scaling up of nuclear capacity on the part of Israel, and then there might be, maybe that's what you mean by arms race. There might be some kind of, more arsenals being invented and developed by Israel. But we must understand the fact that Iran is a newcomer in this game. Israel is far ahead when it comes to such capacity, and nuclear arms race will happen only when Iran has allies around her. But I'm thinking, I want to think aloud that Iran doesn't seem to be in the best of books of even Arab countries. So Iraq is definitely not, an ally of Iran. And a few countries that are allies of the United States, such as Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Oman, and a couple of them, United Arab Emirates and a couple of them. These are not nuclear powers, but I'm not sure that they will, kind of fold their arms and then watch as Iran becomes more of a potential and real nightmare for the entirety of the Middle East. I'm not sure that they will not call Iran to order. And I'm not sure that Iran can quickly will be able to match up with what some countries like Israel and those Western countries that are not too far from Israel, such as Turkey and the rest of them, have already been able to have in terms of nuclear capacity.
Well, thank you so much for your time on Diplomatic Channel, Professor Sheriff Folan.